Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Side Hustle Ideas. I am Bill, the company's expert, and welcome to our weekly live stream where we talk about everything related to entrepreneurship, startups, side hustles, and business in general. So if you are thinking of starting a side hustle to make some money on the side, you've come to the right place. And this is an interactive live stream. So if you see the chat, which should be somewhere in the vicinity of my face, get in the chat, and I will do my best to answer your questions and help you out. Just a couple of public service announcements. I am trying something new today. In the past, there were some complaints that people were trying to write comments in the chat, and their comments were not showing up. They were being filtered out. I have taken a step to try and fix that. So hopefully, if you've experienced that before and you've been here before, get in the chat, try it today, and hopefully there shouldn't be any more filtering out of comments for some weird reason that was happening before. So I just want to make that announcement. Okay, I see there's already some activity in the chat. That's great. Milan Grujovic is here. Hi, Bill. I'm thinking about contacting some of my old companies and offering them my services in mechanical design. Do you think that is doable? Do you have any advice on how should you do this? Well, this is a chat about entrepreneurship and startups. So no, the simple answer is no, but I'm not going to get into it here. I will be doing a live stream later this morning about how to get a job. So show up for that and we can get into more detail. Now, last week, my video is kind of not very smooth. I don't know why. Hopefully that'll sort itself out. There's also a little bit of a lag. Anyway, thank you to the 12 people that have showed up today so far. Thank you for being here. Now, last week, I had someone who attempted to post some comments and they couldn't get their comments through the filter for some reason, and they sent me an email. So I'd like to respond to that first thing. Okay, let's see if I can get this to work. Okay, let's see here. So this is what they sent me. So this is from Michael Tucker, who is a member of this channel. So thank you, Michael. I appreciate the support. Question. I've been in sales and marketing for decades, but accounting and operations make my eyes glaze over. Should I consider hiring someone for those roles? And follow up, or is there an advantage in paying a third-party company for my HR, etc.? Okay, this is what I would say. Okay, I have talked about this before. This is a point that a lot of people are wondering about, that a lot of people have tried. Okay, now if you go to my YouTube channel, this is my YouTube channel, and you scroll down, I had a series that I did a couple of years ago called Success Talks with CEO, and there's this video here, Don't Be a Middleman. Okay? Check out that video, because that really addresses this. Now, I'll try and paraphrase. I won't do as good of a job off the top of my head, but the bottom line is that, unfortunately, that is really not an approach that works. Okay, if you're doing a startup or a business venture of some kind, okay, this is something of your creation. It's not a good idea to immediately start paying people to do big chunks of it. Okay, especially mission critical things like like, for example, for HR, you won't need, if I understand you correctly, you won't need HR really in the beginning. There's very little that you need in the beginning until you have proven that you can make money and you can do this for a profit. Nothing else matters. Okay. So, until you've demonstrated that conclusively, spending money for any real purpose other than directly to prove that is not the way to go. Okay, I've seen this approach fail many times. I've worked with a lot of startup founders and entrepreneurs, and I've never ever seen that work. Okay, now your big question here: should I consider hiring someone for those roles? And those roles being accounting or operations. No, not in the beginning. Operations is making the thing that you're going to sell, whatever that is. You know, you don't want to farm that out to somebody else. They will never care about it like you do. Okay, that's the number one reason. Number two, they will never do as good a job as you, and it'll be way too expensive. Okay, in the very beginning. I mean, maybe there are weird exceptions out there depending on the details of what you're trying to do, but for the vast majority of cases, this is not the way to go. I can understand why you would think that way. A lot of people think that way. But if you really want to know this business and make the right decisions, you have to know it, and you know it by doing it. So you have to do every piece of it in the beginning to understand it. And a lot of the like things like HR and all this, if they don't directly result in your product or service being sold to prove that it's going to happen in the very beginning, then it's not worth doing. Also, the nature of this stuff is that you basically have to be frugal in the very beginning, certainly before you've proven the concept, but just in general, if you're doing a startup, you really have to think frugal. The problem is everybody thinks of Silicon Valley, they think of these weird, crazy exceptions like Apple and Google and Amazon, things like this that you've heard the story 1,000 times. That's what they have in their head. Those are wild, wild exceptions to how people start businesses. People start side hustles and businesses every day. There's millions that start up every day around the world. People, start selling things. People open an e-store. People do a website. People do a YouTube channel. Whatever it is. There are millions of those that are started up every day, and 99.99% of them are not done in the way that you would get the impression by watching a lot of Hollywood movies that talk about the origins of companies that we're all familiar with. Okay, you have to have a very frugal, very cheapskate mindset in the beginning, because you will not have significant money coming in for a while. And if you take the approach where you're paying people, by the hour to work for you, you will run out of money a hell of a lot quicker than you launch your business. That's the general rule. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to Michael Tucker. Now, Michael sent me an email, and this was in the email. Let's see if I can cue this up here. Okay, my situation is that I could easily start and find success in a traditional established business category such as marketing agency or sales training. Okay. However, what I'm going to do instead is to try this insane dream business. I'd like to ask you to go into a detailed deep dive on business validation so that I can poke holes in my idea and try to find potential problems before they happen. Yes, I certainly can, Michael Tucker. Okay, I've talked about this before. This is a great thing for you to be thinking of, okay, the whole validation part. A lot of people, they skip that step. They don't even think of doing that. They just assume that their idea that they dreamed up is just going to work. And so they start spending money and committing to things that later on they regret, because when they execute their plan, they find that it doesn't sell, right? And then you've spent a bunch of money and a bunch of time and done a bunch of things that turned out to be fruitless, unfortunately, apart from perhaps the learning experience. They were like, you could have avoided that, right? So the way to think, you've got the right idea, Michael. The way to go is to validate it. Now, how do you validate something? Okay. In my experience, there's two types of entrepreneurs, okay? Two types of people that want to do this. One are operations type people, technical people, and the other kind are salespeople, for want of a better word. Okay, probably the biggest category here, I'm guessing, are people that are like introverted, technical, operations type people. Okay, so you can create something or you can provide some service, and you're thinking of doing that to make money. Okay, that's great. Now, the first thing you need to understand, if that's you, is that there's a difference between doing what I would call a research project and doing a business, okay? a lot of people that are technical introvert types that want to do a business, that have never done a business before, they think of it more as like a research project. They think like, okay, I know a lot about, I don't know, developing, software developing or plumbing or whatever it is. I know a lot about that. So I'm going to do that. And they spend all their time thinking of how they're going to do it, what tools they're going to use, what product they're going to make, what are the steps to do it. And they really do a deep dive into the operation side, okay, to produce this thing. All the while making an assumption that, at the end of the day, when I finally produce this, people will just buy it. Just like that, right? It'll just happen. Build it and they will come, right? The problem with that thinking is that they don't realize that this is a business. A business is something separate from doing like a project, okay? You can do a project and it can be awesome. It can have value in it, but it's a completely different problem to try and sell it, to try and get the word out. That's a big problem. Then when you get the word out, you do it in such a way that it goes to the right people that would be interested in that. You have to find those people, and how do you reach them? That's a separate problem. Third thing, what do you have to do to convince them that they should spend their money on this and trust you that what you're saying is true? It's not all smoke and mirrors. It's not all a lie. When they buy this thing and they get it home, it will work the way you say it will. They don't know you. You're a stranger. They've never heard of you, right? So that's a problem. And finally, how can you convince them to pay you enough money that this will not only cover its costs, but it will make some kind of profit for you, right? So those are the problems that you've got to think through. For a lot of people, just because you can do something, that's great. We all have value and we can all do things that other people will benefit from, okay? The question is, can you succeed in selling that, in convincing others to do it, right? So that's where the whole validation thing comes in, okay? So how can you validate something? Let's ask that. This is very important to a lot of people. How can you, before you really jump in with both feet and start spending a lot of money and spending a lot of time and doing a whole bunch of things, not spending time with your family or your friends and instead doing this, before you do that, how can you be sure that this is going to pay off, that's going to make money, right? Well, there's only one real way to validate it, and that is to actually sell it. You have to actually get money from people. There's no other way to prove that they will give you the money until you get them to give you the money, right? You could do, for example, surveys. You could say, would you buy this product? The problem is that a lot of people will say, oh yeah, sure, I'd buy it. But then when you actually produce it and say, here it is, do you want to buy it? They don't buy it, right? So there's no other real convincing way to validate whether the money's going to be there than by selling it. If you've said, look, I've made some pre-sales and I've got 10 people that bought this thing for $1,000 each, and I've got, $10,000 cash, now in my pocket because people have pre-ordered it, it's kind of hard to argue and tell them that, well, nobody's going to be interested. You know what I mean? Right? So that's what you have to do. Now, do you have to produce the product or service to pre-sell it? No, you don't. Think about what we do every day. Think about how Amazon works. You see a picture of something, you order it. You buy it from their store. You haven't seen it. It might not even exist for all you know. But you've ordered it, you've paid them the money, and you're just trusting that they'll give it to you, right? Sometimes you may have encountered the situation where you buy something from Amazon or whatever, and it turns out they send you a message 2 months later. It says, we're sorry, we are actually out of stock and we can't get a supply of this, so here's your money back, right? You may have been in that situation. Now, you're disappointed, but you get your money back. They don't take anything from you. So it's that kind of idea that you need to do to validate something, okay? If your thing is as good as you say, let's tell people about it. Let's put that process first before you've created the thing. Here's what I got. Here's what I can do. Are you interested? Okay? That's what you put out there. Now, if you use your best efforts to put that out there and nobody buys it, that's telling you something. If you put that out there and 50 people order it from you, or they line up with their cash in hand and say, how do I pay you? How do I buy one? That tells you something else. Okay? So that's kind of how you validate something. I want to get to some of these questions here. So hopefully that makes sense to Michael Tucker. If you're listening, Michael, and if you have any more questions, let me know in the chat. Okay. Milan says, I was thinking about offering design services, I guess, as a side hustle. I could design machines in my free time and charge them per finished design. I'm wondering, why do you think this would be a bad idea? Well, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it makes sense. You now have to validate it. So basically what I just described would apply to this. So you need to finalize what it is that you're going to be making, okay? You got to figure out who your target market is, like who are potential customers, who are these people, where are they, how do you reach them? You've got to send them a message in some way, shape, or form, okay, saying, here, I got this thing, this could provide this benefit for you. Do you want to buy it from me? And see the result, okay? That's how you validate it. Chances are it will not be a hole-in-one success the first time, but you've then got to tweak what you are offering and how you are offering it and who you're offering it to until you get some responses. They say, I'll take one of those. Right? Okay. What I think of the idea is immaterial. What anybody thinks of the idea is immaterial. The only valid question is, do people want to buy it for the price that you are selling it for? Right? So figure out how much, money you would need to sell it for and start putting that out there. And you see, you're front loading a task that you have to do anyway, which is you've got to figure out how you're going to sell it, who you're going to sell it to, okay, and how to reach these people. Sometimes it's all done online, right? Sometimes it's all done in person. Sometimes it's some weird combination. Sometimes it's a storefront, a physical brick and mortar store, or a presence out in the real world. Sometimes it's a virtual presence. It varies, right? I mean, you have to figure out what's the best way to do. So there's nothing wrong with the idea that I can tell, Milan. It sounds like it's worth testing, right? And the devil's in the details. What precisely you're offering, who you're offering it to, and how you're trying to sell it. So hopefully that makes sense. Roanora, if I'm saying that right. Greetings, Roanora. Okay, I'm just going to try and resize my screen because this is not really fitting on my screen that well. There we go. Okay, Roanora says, thinking about starting a Web3 business strategy, okay, and operations company, and thought I needed to write a business plan before I watched one of your videos and realized there were more pressing concerns, have been setting discovery calls instead. Okay, was there a question in there, Roanora? I'm not a fan of writing business plans before you do anything. How would you know what to do if you've never tried anything? If you've never validated the idea? It's an archaic way of thinking about it to do a business plan first if you're an entrepreneur, okay? If you're just an individual who wants to do a side hustle or do their own business, like what are you going to use the business plan for? If you're wanting to go for investors, that's a whole different ball game, and they don't care what's in your plan. They care about validating you, right? Now, if you've done a series of successful entrepreneurial ventures, that's one thing. But if you're just a regular person that's just getting into this, it doesn't matter what you write down in a plan, you won't be able to impress investors with something written on a paper. They need real world results where you've shown that you've made like a ton of money. So you don't need a plan for that. If you're trying to get a loan from a bank, they don't care about your business plan either, because it's all simply based on, collateral. Like, what are you going to put down as a as collateral. That's what they care about. They don't believe in your business. They don't believe in what you're trying to do. They're not going in as an equity investor. They're just trying to give you a loan. And they don't really care what you do with the money as long as you pay them back. And if you don't pay them back, they take your house or your car or whatever it is. So you don't need a business plan for that either. You know, the only possible use I think a business plan might be to someone wanting to do a side hustle is if you're looking for some kind of government funding or special grant or something, then maybe you could write a business plan. It'll all be like guesswork, but maybe they want to see a business plan just to see that you've maybe perhaps thought ahead in some minimalist way as to what you're going to do. You know, it'll all be bogus because until you start trying things, you won't know what to do. You won't know what would make sense and what won't make sense. Okay, so the best thing to do, Roanora, is just to start trying things. Like what I suggested at the beginning of this live stream, where you validate things. That's the work you have to do. You've got to figure out, who are you going to be selling to? Who are these people? What do you have to say to them to convince them to buy? You know, what feature, if it's a product, what feature should it have? Are they going to need to see a picture? Are they going to need to see a video? Are they going to need to see an in-person demonstration? Maybe they don't need any of that if, you know, you have, I don't know, some big company or celebrity or something interested. I don't know. Like, these are the kinds of questions you would have to get answers to. And the only way to get answers to that for you and your thing that you're doing is for you to go out and start trying stuff, right? So you have to solve that problem at some point. The best way is to directly tackle it now at the beginning, before you've spent any money or real effort. You know what I mean? Don't spend your life savings, like, you know, creating something only to find out later that, whoops, it doesn't sell. And then you've wasted all your money and time, you know? So yeah. So if you're thinking about doing this company, right? Start trying to get customers or clients or users or whatever, you know, whatever it is you're trying to do, start like finding the audience for it. Don't just build the whole thing and then find out later that, whoops, no one's interested and I don't know why. And if you go to someone for help, some kind of advisor or, you know, expert or whatever, the first question they're going to have for you is, who are the people that you wanted to buy this? Where are they? Give me a list of people, you know, where I can see these individuals or these businesses, whatever it is. And you're going to go, I don't know. I just sort of put a post on the internet and I thought people would see it and show up. Right? So you got to address this at some point. Might as well do it now. Okay. Yeah, there you go. I guess I've got to the end of my questions, unfortunately, already. But there's 21 of you guys here. If you're capable of getting in the chat, if that's possible for you. I know some people listen to this while they're driving and stuff like that. So this doesn't apply to you. But if you can get in the chat and let me know what you're struggling with. And how this all works. I'm going to try and pull up something here. If I can make my computer work for me instead of against me. Yeah. You know, business is a skill, right? It's a skill like any other. It's really not rocket science, but there's just a couple of basic principles you do need to know. And the best thing to do is a combination of learning some of the basic theory and then go out and trying things, right? That's really how you learn. And the time you put into learning this, like if you're in your 20s or something, you know, that will benefit you throughout the rest of your career and the rest of your life, just by knowing some of the principles at play. Because even if, let's say hypothetically, you don't end up doing a side hustle or, you know, a business or whatever, and you just end up working as an employee for your entire life, that's fine. For some people, that's perfectly fine. The person you're working for, your employer, they are in business. So a lot of these principles apply to them, right? So if you are aware of the principles that apply to them, like the rules of the game that they're having to conform to, that makes you much more aware when you make decisions about how, what you do as an employee, right? If you're wanting to get a promotion, if you're wanting to do things that the company or the organization cares about and regards as good, if you understand all like the rules of this game, being in business, that will benefit you. And I'm speaking from experience here. Shahin says, what to do if we work with a middleman? They bring in business, but we are stuck without them. They take a major chunk of the money. Okay, well, like what to do about it? Well, I assume that you want to change the situation. What you're describing makes sense to me. If they're providing a lot of value, you would not have business without them, then they're certainly valuable for you, right? It's certainly worth the money that you're paying them, okay? However, if you are interested in assuming or partly assuming their role, you're saying like, well, look, it doesn't seem like you're doing all that much. If I could learn to do what you're doing, then I could not have to pay you a huge chunk of the, of the profits, or, if you're a big expense or something, I could do that for myself. So, okay, like you could, the obvious thing, if that's your goal, the obvious thing is to try and figure out what they're doing and how they're doing it, and see if you can do it yourself, right? That's pretty basic. Okay. But, I mean, I don't know if this is the case here, Shahin, but if you're in a situation where, like, the way you're adding value is by putting in time, right? Like, you're doing something maybe less skilled, but you're working long hours doing it, and that's how you contribute. Okay, that's where the value comes from that you generate. That's fine. Other people, there's different ways of pricing. There's different ways of charging for your value. And one way of charging for your value is called value-based pricing. That's where they don't charge based on the amount of labor they put in. They charge based on the benefit that they bring. Okay? So, for example, to illustrate this, the classic example is, well, I've actually seen this. Okay, I worked in this industry. There was it wasn't a manufacturing plant, it was a processing plant, a huge processing plant. And they bring in, I don't know, it was like something like $500,000 a day or $1 million a day revenue, something like that, like huge operation. Okay. And they had a lot of different industrial equipment on site. And one of their machines broke down. And so the entire plant wasn't producing anything. Okay. And as I say, they're losing something like $1 million a day, or at least $500,000 a day of revenue. So every hour that machine is broken and not running, it's costing the company huge amounts of money, right? So they want to get it fixed as soon as possible, right? So I was involved with the company that it's their job to fix it. Okay. So we would send a technician to go and fix it. So the technician gets there, and they look at the machine and they do something that takes like literally 2 minutes to do. They flip a couple of switches, turn it off, turn the whole thing back on, bam, there you go. It's working. Now, a month later or whatever, the processing plant gets the bill. They get the invoice. And the invoice is for like $100,000, something like that. It wasn't, but it was quite a lot of money. And the plant manager contacts us and says, like, what's this about? The guy worked for 5 minutes and you're charging me all this money. And it's like, yeah, we're charging you for about the equivalent of 15 minutes of the machine being down. It was down 4 hours, because by the time you called us and we got there and we fixed it, it had been down for about 4 hours. That's, I don't know, how many $100,000 is that of lost revenue? Well, it was costing you multiple thousands of dollars every hour it was down We got there quick. We fixed it very quickly for you. If you had gotten somebody else in that took like 2 hours or something, that would have cost you another $100,000 of lost revenue. So it's well worth it, right? You know, if you pay like, I don't know, $20,000 to get the machine back up and running, so it's not down for half a day, right? This is kind of, I'm not telling the story very well, but you get the idea, right? It's not based on how much labor went into it. It's based on the value, okay? You know, another time I was, I've done this several times, but I advised a business client, they were paying me for my consultation. I advised them not to go into a partnership with another company. It was a software company. I said, don't get them to do it in-house. They didn't listen to me, and they went and made a mistake that was like $40,000 or $50,000 cost to them. You know, now I was charging them a tiny fraction of that for my time. You know, I could have turned around in future and charged them $20,000 and say, well, look, you know, this is the value of the advice I'm giving you. If you'd actually listened to me, you know, you could have saved yourself $40,000. So you pay like a few $100s to save $40,000. It's totally worth it, right? So that's value-based pricing. When you buy jewelry and things like that, it's based on value-based pricing. It doesn't matter how much the jewelry costs. It matters how much people will pay for it, how much value they see in it, right? So that's value-based pricing, and that's what's at play here in your example, Shannon. Okay, so if you can change the situation, if you can assume their function, yeah, you know, you can do that. I mean, I can't give you specifics unless you give me specifics of your situation, but that's basically the idea. Rowanora says, networking your way to clients and mass marketing. Okay. Cool. I don't understand the context of that comment, but sure. Yeah, like, you know, being in business is a different problem to doing a project, right? Like if you're just wanting to do a project, you want to write a piece of software, you want to learn how to code, and you write an app or, you know, or something. That's great. That's a project, right? But the moment you try and sell it, that's a whole different problem. Just because you can create the app doesn't mean you can sell it. And just because you can sell it doesn't mean that you can create the app. They're two separate things, right? Once money is involved and you're trying to sell something, that's the world of business. And that's where you need to learn business to be certainly much more successful at it. Right? So that's how that goes. Get in the chat if you guys have any questions. I will take your questions. Other than that, I don't have anything else on the agenda for me to talk about. I just respond to questions. So if I don't get any questions within the next minute or so, I'll just wind this down for today. I will be back in about half an hour for the weekly live stream called, what's it called? How to Get Hired, where we talk about jobs, employment, job interviews, resumes, all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in that, come back in about half an hour. I will be talking about that. But yeah, hopefully nobody got filtered out today. This is my first big experiment on fixing that issue. And as a reminder, as always, as you guys can see on the screen, whichever screen I have up, I have a couple of courses, and the one that's of particular relevance today is this one here, the $100 MBA. That teaches you the not the basics of business. It teaches you the basics plus more advanced stuff. Basically, everything you would learn in a Master's of Business Administration, you get that for $100. Sound too good to be true? Yeah, there's a catch. The catch is that it's self-study. Okay, so you get the books, and I provide a few videos, like I think 6 hours total of videos. I sort of guide you through the material, but you learn the material yourself by reading the books. The books are textbooks. They are the actual books that are used in MBA programs, or in some of the most prestigious MBA programs around the world. including like Harvard Business School. They use these exact books. So when you take a class from them, you're learning the material out of these books, right? Now, obviously, they do class discussions and things. You get a little bit more. But I mean, for $100, it's a great way to like get a good comprehensive overview of everything you would learn. And if you want to go deep, you can. That's the great thing. And you can do it entirely on your own terms. You don't have to quit your job and, pay 5 figures for a typical brick and mortar MBA. You can just do this on your own terms. So that's why I created it, primarily for entrepreneurs. So that's why I'm plugging it here, because if you want to learn this world and learn how the concepts of marketing and operations and accounting and finance, how all of those work, this is the actual peer-reviewed material that's being taught in schools. It's not somebody's book they wrote, like a coffee table book that's just their opinions and just you can write whatever you want. It may not be valid or, may be controversial. It might not be true. This is the actual stuff that's being taught and being used. So, it's valid. And none of these books are written by me. They're written by the people that are leaders in their field, that are like the gold standard, that write textbooks on these subjects. So there you go. So check that out if you are interested. There's a link in the description if that sounds like something that you would be interested in. No pressure. Just if you're looking at learning business, I created this solution specifically for this purpose. I've taught a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of startup founders, and this is something that's been a recurring theme. They don't know basic business principles, and it's hurting them. It's causing them to go out and make very expensive mistakes. So you can avoid all that. And it helps you in a conventional career also. Okay, not getting a lot of questions, but that's fine. We're gonna wind this down for today. Thank you so much for being here. There's 20 of you guys here. You guys are awesome. I wish you all the best in your startup related endeavors. If you're just trying to do a side hustle on the side, I do this every week on Mondays. So come back next week if you do have any questions I can help you with. Thanks so much and take care.